symbols such as the gangster disciples, to loose neighborhood crews with no hierarchy or business, and they align with such a particular block or set. All gangs, posses, sets, crews, or blocks, or other associations or names for groups. And here in St. Mary's County, we predominantly have two criminal organizations or groups. They're known as 503 and Southside. So with that understanding, we can take a look at the numbers. Obviously, in 2020, from 2019, our homicide rate, we doubled. The weapons violations increased drastically from 2019 to 2020. Our assault with a firearm numbers remained almost the same. Our reckless endangerments increased. And of the 32 assault with firearms that we had in 2020, 5 of those were contact shootings where somebody was actually shot. And we were able at the time to determine that one of those was a group violence involved incident. And what's important to know about this is in 2020, this was essentially our introduction to group violence here in St. Mary's County. Although we've always known what gangs are and things of that nature, the particular group violence that we were encountering here in St. Mary's County with the local street criminal organizations that are somewhat unorganized and the manner in which they go about firearm violence, we really were introduced to it in 2020. So when we were able to identify one, you'll see that number increase as we go on. So with these numbers in mind, in the early months of 2021, we obviously recognized a pressing need to address the gun violence here in St. Mary's County. So what we did was we took 18 months worth of firearm data or firearm-related incidents. We combed through that information, and at the conclusion of that, we were able to determine that most of the firearm violence in this community, or a large portion of the firearm violence in the community, was perpetrated by a small group of individuals here in the community. We also identified that most of the individuals that are perpetrating the gun violence were under the age of 25, which is important because youth is federally defined as between the ages of 7 and 25. So with that information in mind, we now know who's perpetrating the gun violence in the community, and we have an understanding of how they're going about perpetrating that gun violence in the community. So we also understand that traditional policing strategies such as saturation patrol or a large police presence in certain communities would not be effective to create lasting effects. So what we did was in June of 2021, we implemented the Youth Gun Violence Task Force. The task force was a collaborative effort between the ATF, MSP, and the state's attorney's office. From the unit's inception, it was always intended to be a temporary unit. It was never intended to be a permanent unit. It truly was an all-hands-on-deck operation at the sheriff's office. We allocated just about every resource we could to address the issue with the hopes of creating a lasting effect. And at the conclusion of the task force, which was approximately 90 days, we executed 105 search warrants, seized 19 firearms, and made 65 arrests. So despite the task force success, it was always known that we needed more than just a law enforcement only approach, that we would need help from our community leaders. We would need to harness the strengths of our local community leaders, And in the months that followed the task force, we saw an increase in the number of firearm violence began to rise again. So therefore, May of 2022, the Criminal Intelligence Unit, or CIU, was created. That's a permanent unit within the Sheriff's Office now, and it falls under the Criminal Investigations Division. So the unit, of course, aims to continue what the task force had done on a permanent basis, again, with hoping to create those lasting effects in the community. These numbers are accurate as of a couple days ago. We've written 308 search and seizure warrants, seized 51 firearms, and effectuated 121 arrests. So again, still understanding that traditional policing strategies are ineffective when dealing with this type of firearm violence in the community, we implemented the Group Violence Intervention Program. This program was created by the National Network for Safer Communities at John Jay College. It's an evidence-based strategy. In implementing the program, we've partnered with the Health Department, Department of Juvenile Services, Department of Social Services, the State's Attorney's Office, and faith-based and community leaders. So the program uses the resources that we have here in the community already at our disposal in the hopes of addressing the root cause for firearm violence, which we know to be distressed families, education or lack thereof, job opportunities, and housing. It might be hard for some of you to see this. I've included these two pictures here. These are part of a pamphlet that we provide during our custom notification, which is something we'll talk about here in a minute. These are on here to show some of the services that we offer to help these individuals with any adversity they may be facing that's causing them to choose firearm or any other type of violent crimes in the community. So the GBI model, it's made up of several teams. The first team is the executive board. They meet on a quarterly basis. When they meet, essentially, we talk about the program's progress, and they ensure that we have the resources that we need. So that consists of the sheriff's office, the health department, Department of Social Services, State's Attorney's Office, Department of Juvenile Services, and St. Mary's County Mediation Center. The next team is going to be the administrative team. It's Michelle and I. The administrative team meets on a weekly basis. We discuss program updates, talk about relevant information, and coordinate upcoming events. And then we meet on a monthly basis to do what's called a shooting review. A shooting review is where we discuss any recent shootings that have occurred in the community. We talk about where they occurred, who was involved in them. And the hope is that we can paint a picture of where these shootings are happening, who's involved, who's potentially going to be involved, who's potentially going to be a victim. And that way we can address it and we can get ahead of it. So the next team is the GBI notification team. And this is the team that goes out into the community, that knocks on the doors, stands on the porches, and talks to the people in the community that are affected by this violence and that are perpetrating this violence. We do this on a monthly basis. We go out, we talk to these individuals, and when we get to these houses or wherever we make contact with these individuals that we've identified, we begin by introducing ourselves, obviously, and explaining why we're there. Throughout the messaging, you'll hear that we explain to them that we want them to be safe, alive, and free. That's very important messaging that we provide. And we utilize CORE as the way in which that we provide the custom notification, which stands for consequences, opportunity, responsibility, and ultimately empowerment. So consequences. So this segment is delivered by law enforcement. It's a rather direct segment in which law enforcement notifies the individual that we have identified them as a perpetrator of gun violence in the community. We let them know that we have a zero tolerance policy for firearm violence in the community, and that ultimately the sheriff's office in the community is not going to stand for it. We let them know that there's going to be consequences for their actions should they continue with firearm violence in the community. The consequences could stem from incarceration. Ultimately, if they're involved in firearm violence, it could result in the loss of their life or somebody else's life. But throughout this messaging, you'll see this again. We let them know that we want them to be successful, safe, alive, and free. And then we move on to opportunity. So opportunity is delivered by Michelle here again. Michelle, when she delivers this portion of the messaging, she talks to them about the opportunities that the community has to offer them in hopes of removing any obstacles that they may be facing. It could be financial support, legal support, help with resume building and things of that nature. Anything that we can offer in the community to help divert them away from what the firearm violence in the community. This portion, responsibility, it's here in the PowerPoint, and although responsibility is kind of sprinkled throughout the messaging that we deliver, ultimately we explain to them that they are responsible for their actions. If they choose to pick up a firearm, if they choose to squeeze or pull the trigger, they are responsible for the actions. If they choose to pick up the pamphlet that we leave with them and make the phone call to take advantage of the opportunities, then they are responsible for that as well. And we remind them that throughout the messaging that we do. And the last part is empowerment. So this portion of the custom notification is delivered by our community leaders. This part of the portion is important because we understand that it's not necessarily, everybody doesn't have the obstacle necessarily of needing help with housing or employment that has caused them to go to firearm violence or go down that road. It may just be that they need a mentor, they need a role model, they need somebody to look up to, they need a safe place to go, they need somebody to talk to. So ultimately, we attempt to empower them before we leave, and again, remind them that we want them to be safe, alive, and free, and ultimately we want them to be successful. So the original GBI notification team comprised of myself with CIU, Michelle with the health department, and Pastor Bell as the community faith-based leader. On August 28th of 23, we made our first notification, and we've made 29 notifications since then. Recently, we added John Smith. Some of you may be familiar with him as a community leader to the team. So now there's 4 of us that go out. What it looks like is we all pile into my car. We go out in the community, and we attempt to make contact with as many people as we can make contact with, and pass out pamphlets and information and
was my first time for being as a right to Channel 4 News Girl. So, so I'm a warden at the detention center. I've been the warden for the past 2 years. I have been with the sheriff's office since 1989. If you do the math, that's a long time. So I'm very, very happy to be here this evening. And, we're the focus this evening is on gun violence, but I would love to come back and talk to you all about the great things that are happening at the detention center as far as offender reentry. I'd like for y'all to come take a tour. We have been in renovations since by May, so please, if you all would like to maybe come back, or if you would like to come and visit the center, we're glad to. So I thought it was important this evening to put up the numbers. One of the things that very, very importantly is if you look at this, you do the math, there's 303 offenders that we were watching in St. Mary's County. They're not all in the detention center. We have a very, very robust pretrial supervision program. And these are our community corrections is very robust. We also have a data reporting program. So we are watching, I guess, about 88 people on pretrial supervision. The really great thing with pretrial supervision is we are able to keep offenders in the community. We're able to hook them up with the services that we need. You're down to get real hub a couple times a week. So it's very, very robust. One of the really great things about pretrial supervision, it also helps us identify folks with mental health issues. What will happen is people will come in, they'll be committed to the detention center by the district court commissioner, and then we're able to get them to bail review. And what's happened is during that 24 hours, we are able to get a really good look at folks to be able to see if they need additional mental health. So right at bail review, we can ask for competency for a person, and we can get them the services they need to be able to get for the doctor to be able to see if they need a competency order, and we can get them to the state mental hospital as soon as we can. And that was one of the things that I was told recently that doesn't happen in other jurisdictions, but that is very much a benefit of the pretrial supervision. The other really good thing of pretrial supervision is we have 3 different levels. So depending on your crime, it depends. You could just be in the community and do like a weekly check-in, or you could be on level 3, which is basically a hold back from home detention where you have GPS monitor in your home. But what we find is we have such great success on pretrial supervision where folks are able to maintain their jobs, they're able to be hooked up with substance abuse treatment. So it's really, really beneficial for everyone. And 9 times out of 10, when they come to sentencing, they don't get time in jail, or they'll take the group over and go into our community program for data reporting, which is what's formerly. So it's very, very important that we're able to keep people in the community, because we all know the less time people spend locked up, the better they are. The other thing that really is really good with us is a couple of years back, we raised our hand. We became a medication for opioid use disorder rural pilot program. So in St. Mary's County, as soon as you come in, we have a offender reentry on the mind. We are getting hooked up with medication for opioid use disorder. We are getting ready to go back to the community. So offender reentry starts as soon as you work. So it's very, very important to notice that, we have 107 people that are awaiting trial. We have 53 who are sentenced. One of the things that you do not see any longer in St. Mary's County is we just no longer have, how like you see people go out and help like with the fair and those kinds of things. We do not have that population any longer because they are already in the community, they're in their homes, they're maintaining their jobs, and that's much better than while community service is always great. It's really good for you. So that's just kind of a glimpse of what we have. Other thing that happens is when people come in, if they don't go out in the community, we also do inpatient. So what we will do is we get them in the jail for about 30 to 45 days. We get them acclimated, we get them on substitutes, and then we put them back out in the community and inpatient services. So we do have a very robust community corrections. So one of the things this evening was the gun charges. So as you can see, we have about 53 people that are in the jail currently on gun charges. And the other slide that we asked you to put up this evening was just about, how, heavy charges. So about 20% of our population that's incarcerated, which is about, out of the 200 inmates that are in the jail, we have one of the first degree, assault first degree, and attempted first degree. So we do have a very high population for that. And also, very much, we have a lot of mental health facilities, as I said, very tied to the state mental hospital. We have a mental health program where we have counselors that are tied to the detention center. So we are working towards opening mental health. I did give out because I have a whole presentation that go into how our offender reentry works, but I did want to make sure that you knew that, it used to be back in the day that our mission was safety, security, and control, and that still is, but we very much have shifted to a health equity mission. So I'd love to come back at some point. The other thing that I don't have a slide for this evening is to talk about juveniles. We are at unprecedented amounts of juveniles that are coming into the facility. And in 2021, we had there were 6 juveniles that were in the jail. In 2022, there were 2. In 2023, there were 9. And so far in 2024, I've had 3 come in. So the juvenile charged as adults are very serious, and most of them are with firearms. And I cannot keep them at the jail because I do not have a place for sight and sound separation. So thankfully, we are able to transfer to the effective juvenile system. So but it is very concerning. So thank you very much. And like I said, anytime you'd like to come to the detention center, you are more than welcome. So please, it has to be after I finish renovation, so it'll be after bed. So thank you all very much.
If I can have all my staff come up front, so that I'm going to do an introduction.
That's your friend.
To meeting.
I won't have to hold this thing.
So if you have questions for the sheriff or anyone on the staff, please pass your questions to the envelope collector. Or raise your hand so I can know where to go. Over there. There's no way in this room got one question.
I'm just going to give you a quick introduction to staff real quick. Maybe 4.
Okay, thank you, Marcia.
On the end here, this is Captain Sean Moses, Administrative Division. That's the budget, recruiting, retention, all the fun stuff, records. This is Commander Bonnie Payne from the St. Mary's County Detention Center. Captain Sarah Smith, Patrol Division, Southern.
Part of the county. Her administrative lieutenant, Corey Ellis, the warden, Mary Ann Thompson. This is the senior member of the command staff. This is Captain Edward Willenborg, in charge of Criminal Investigations Division. This is Lieutenant Joshua Crum, also of the Criminal Intelligence, Criminal Investigative, a little narcotics. He's very well-rounded, but Lieutenant Joshua Crum, and of course you met Sergeant Austin Schultz of the CIU. With that,
So give fine men and ladies a round of applause, right? Thank you guys so much for. I'm just going to squeeze in right here next to you.
Do you want the mic?
Nope, my mouth
Okay.
is so big.
Okay.
That way I can just do this and see you guys. Thank you guys again for coming out and being willing to answer some questions for us and sharing a lot of information. It's really helpful. We again appreciate that you do that for us every year. So we look forward to next year as well. So I have a few questions here. If you think of any questions as these are being discussed, can I have the mic? As these are being discussed, please just raise your hand and pass your card so that we can add yours to the how. All right. So the first question we have is in regards to the increase in the scams towards the elderly. So local church pastor's email was used to get $400 from from the citizens. And so the question is, what is being done to combat these actions? And are briefs being conducted at local churches and senior citizens?
I'll take that one, I guess. And we can
Look at
try-
this thing. We're gonna pass the mic. That's what we're gonna do. Is that okay, BJ? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Scams. So what do you think is going to start to happen very, very soon as far as scams go? Who said taxes? Taxes. That will be the next wave. I know Elisa Cassis puts out things constantly about scams. Be alert. Watch this on social media. Things that are advertised in the paper. A common scam is somebody calling saying that they're from the Fraternal Order of Police or from the sheriff's office. They've even used AI, and they can do my voice and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a little donation." But we try to educate the public. I have been to every senior center to do presentations and talk to them about scams and other issues and concerns that they have. I regularly try to visit Cedar Lane as well. Most of the time, the most effective thing that you can do is have somebody that you trust. People talk about a safe word, things like that. You should always have somebody that is your safe person. If you get a phone call, they're very, very well trained. Most of the people that are originating the scams are not in the country. They're very well trained. They're psychological masters. They do their homework. They will look at your Facebook profiles. They will see that you have a young grandchild. They will see that they're a male, about the age, and they will train. If there's any video associated with Facebook accounts, they will train someone or find someone that can mimic the voice. One of the most common scams, and I personally have family and friends that have fallen for it, is your loved one has been involved in an accident. They're at fault. We need you to contact this attorney to avoid further issues. Here's the number. They pass it off. That attorney then, well trained, knows what to say, and they will get you to send money, access accounts, and things of that nature. So the only thing I can tell you to do is have someone that you trust to always be able to call. If you don't have a person or you have somebody that you're concerned about, have them call us. Because people that don't have someone that cares, you've got an army of people that care right here. We have squashed quite a few phone calls. There was one, a local pastor was being blackmailed because they said, you were on a site, you took pictures, we have pictures of you, and they said, you're going to be arrested. We're calling the police right now unless you give us access to your account and give us $5,400. The only thing they did was go to the police. They didn't have anybody else. They're not from the area. Happens.
This is not a question, but just to add to it. On Tuesday, April 9th, the Keys to Senior Independence is offering a financial health identity protection, and there's going to be sheriff representative at that event. It's at it's hosted by the Department of Aging and Human Services at the College of Southern Maryland, building C room 204. You can contact Sarah Miller at St. Mary's County Government 301-475-4200 extension 1073.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that answer the question?
I'm gonna just stay close to you. So keeping on with seniors, Donaldson Drive is across from Spring Valley on Peggs Road, and it's a majority senior citizens. How are they being protected from the violence on Peggs Road?
Is there anything in particular that's going on at the senior center, or is it a general question about the area itself? Was there a particular incident? I'm not aware of anything that happened at the location on Peggs Road. So basically what we would do is We have individuals that are assigned to the Southern Division that are on Peggs Road and several of the other roads in that area that patrol, try to maintain a high visibility, traffic enforcement, because we know that that works to suppress crime. If there's any individuals that are trying to enter that and scam individuals, we have a good working relationship with the people in those centers that know to call us. If they have anything suspicious, if they have somebody that's trying to enter the facility and they don't have guests or a loved one there, that we're called. So that open dialogue, if there's something going on that's either suspicious or dangerous, other than our high visibility, we would hope that people would report that, and that would then protect the people in that housing area.
Thank you so much for answering that. We have a question regarding the group violence prevention team. So I guess you're up. No. No, I'm just teasing. I'm sorry. So how long have the 503 in the South Side been in the county? How big are these groups? And what's the average age and numbers?
So the two organizations, they've been in the county for several years now. It's somewhat interesting to see how it changes over time and how the names change over time. But it wasn't long ago we had OMB and things of that nature, and then the names have progressed to 503 and Southside. So they've been in the community for several years now. As far as the membership goes, we are still working tirelessly to identify the members of these organizations. It's not as if like you'd be familiar with some of the larger criminal organizations, the Bloods or the Crips or something of that nature, where they're very easily identifiable. They wear colors. They are proud to represent the organizations that they're with. These are loosely affiliated criminal organizations that predominantly are in neighborhoods. They move out of the neighborhoods. They lose ties with the organization and things of that nature. So it's difficult to put a number and say we have X amount of number in this group or X amount of number in that group. It fluctuates greatly and hopefully on the decline with us doing our job and making the arrests. And I'm sorry, there was another part to that. Oh, I'm sorry, the age. So again, we've identified that most of the individuals that are involved are, generally speaking, from the under the age of 25. We've had the unfortunately, we've arrested them all the way down to the age of 12 that have been involved. So the age range is somewhat vast, but generally speaking, we find with these criminal organizations and these groups that we're dealing with, as they get a little bit older and closer to the 30s, they generally fall out of favor, I guess, with the organizations, and or they just decide to move on.
Thank you. You can stay right there. We have some more questions in that regard. One, will that PowerPoint be available to the public?
So I can make it available. I have it on I can make it available. I don't have
Awesome.
I'll have to figure out how to do it, but yes.
We will get it to you. So with the key violence that you talked about in the PowerPoint with your update, they have a few questions regarding updated data from 2021 and 22 and last year and also for this year. So how is the data being updated, and will that also be available? And with that data, having that in mind, are you seeing any improvements regarding the youth crime?
So as far as the data goes, we have the updated year-to-date data in this PowerPoint. As far as the assaults and things of that nature, that information is, of course, tracked at the sheriff's office. So we have easy access to that. Number of our search warrants, arrests, and firearm seizures, we have that information as well. The information in the PowerPoint was updated just a few days ago. And then I'm sorry, I keep blanking on the last part of your question.
No worries. And does the data show any improvement in youth crime violence?
So as far as the group violence intervention program and the follow-up portion of that, that's with the health department and the street outreach worker, working to get them to follow up with the individuals we notify, and then to track if any of the individuals are reaching out for the services is going to be huge in the implementation of the program. So it's difficult to say if anybody's necessarily taking advantage of the opportunities we've when we go out and speak to these individuals. However, recently, we, of course, we track when all the shootings are. November 8th, I believe, we had our last shooting in a neighborhood. We did have one more recently, but there was a 2.5-month span where we didn't have any shootings in the community at all that were group violence involved. We had no contact shootings. We had no, like we spoke about, reckless endangerments where we went out to a neighborhood and there was just casings. So I think that is a success in that we can say for 2.5 months, we didn't have any shootings. Prior to that, I can't tell you the last time that we went a span that long without any shootings that we identified as group violence.
So we did notice a downward trend in looks like November, December of the year, but we've had some new violence here in January.
Yes, just one incident, which again is good. Again, what we see is in the summertime, it generally picks up. However, there was, I think it was last year in January, we noticed an increase as well. So.
Okay. Nope, don't go anywhere. So thinking about that key violence, what are the actual metrics that goes into what you're looking at when you're considering key violence? And will this data be shared on your website as well?
So.
Really a question I wanted to share.
Oh.
My concern was very hard percentage of crime. Go to your website, literally no data, 5 years back, year to date, what are the key metrics in terms of crime? It's very hard to find. You go to national websites and
That's a very interesting point, and I'm glad you brought it up because the national reporting system changed recently from UCR to NIBRS. So there's a debate on how that's affecting how crime is being tracked across the country, by state, and then individually to the county. Our statistics are, I've seen them work both ways. You can see that when the sergeant was up here, the one thing that he was trying not to do is the old jinx, because once you say that crime is down, that's what'll happen.
I mean, data
But-
is data. It's part of this. It should be easy for the community to see the key metrics that you look at, that we can get a sense and judge for ourselves what's going on. 'Cause I think a lot of people think things are getting a lot worse. I think they're misinformed. But it's hard to find the data. All we see are the headlines in the local paper when somebody gets shot at.
Well, and it depends on the type of crime that you're talking about. And then we're also going to a new CAD and RMS system. So the way that things were classified in that example that was just given about aggravated assault with a firearm, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, sometimes things were reported one way and then reclassified to something else. That's going to skew the statistics. When we go to the new CAD RMS system and we're using NIBRS only now, I think you're going to see a more uniform and clarified way to get to those metrics. But it depends on, so what's the most serious crime?
Murder.
So that's down
Right.
from last year.
All I'm saying is you can't, it's very hard to find that. It'd be nice to have it on the website.
Okay. I'll make sure that we're doing a better job of that. And then I want to make sure that where you're looking. What's the most pressing thing that we see as far as an increase? Theft of motor vehicles. So one is down, but theft of motor vehicles. And I mean, there are young people out there stealing motor vehicles. And that originated with a TikTok challenge. But what scares me to death, and you probably heard me say this before, is when one of our deputy sheriffs is out there and they turn on a stolen vehicle, you can chase a stolen vehicle. What if it's a 13-year-old driving it? And that doesn't turn out well. Nobody wins. Nobody wins. Everybody loses in that scenario. So those are the things, that's actually a big concern of ours. But we're seeing some positive movement on that as well. But I'll talk to you afterwards and make sure that we do a better job of the statistics, the metrics, and make sure you're looking in the right place.
Awesome. We're going to remember that. Are there any African Americans or other minorities on your team?
Our sheriff's office team?
Yes.
Absolutely. Right now, I think we have more African American representation on the sworn side of the sheriff's office than we've ever had. Here's the problem. Supervisory, no representation. Not for lack of trying. So the captain and I, Sarah, were just talking about people that we think are going to be integral parts of the growth of this agency, the future of this agency. And I got to tell you, a lot of people are not interested in taking control of what other people do as police officers out there. It's a lot more liability, it's a lot more exposure, and it's a lot more work for just a little bit more money. It takes a special kind of person, but it's our responsibility to encourage them to do that. And that's what we're doing.
Thank you. What do you see as the community's possible means of helping reduce youth offenses? What can we do?
Well, it's funny. There's an individual sitting in the room that I was talking to about a recent incident. And the only thing that I can tell you is that the people that are in this room are the solution. It is not simply a law enforcement problem. And I say this because most of the tragic situations that these men and women have to investigate and get into extreme detail with family and scenes and things of that nature, you have to be able to track that back to the genesis point. If a young person has access to a weapon, uses the weapon in commission of a crime as a tool of terror, we are responsible for the reactive most of the time. What is being done with that child in the household? What's being done? Who's watching them? Who's caring for them? Who is holding them accountable and responsible for their behavior? What we're seeing is that a lot of these kids are flopping in houses. They have very little to no supervision. They have no role models. They have no mentors. They are finding worth, finding power, finding value, holding a gun. It gives them power. It gives them purpose, and it scares me to death. There is a glorification of violence by young people in this country, not just here. What can we do? We got to care. We got to reach out. If you know somebody that is at risk, put them in contact with somebody that can get them into services, mentoring, call one of us. It's better to try and have an intervention before than after. But it is a community problem, and it's only going to be solved by the community. If we don't deal with what's happening in that home that even allows a child to think about doing something with a gun, have access to a gun, and then God forbid use it. If we don't deal with that, we're never going to solve the problem.
So it's up to us to be more involved and
Absolutely.
make those connections when we see something. See
Absolutely.
something, say something.
Absolutely. We see it. It's successful. We see it all the time. But oftentimes it's too late. I mean, you heard the warden. Those are souls that are in the jail. And I walked through the jail today, and jail has a very, very unique smell, and it's rotting potential. That's what it is.
How would a stronger focus by the county government on investments and addressing homelessness, addiction, providing youth services help the sheriff's department?
Funding is one thing, but you got to have the people. You got to have the people that are willing to step up and step in. Money sometimes does not solve the problem. A lot of people like to throw money at stuff and think it's going to take care of it, but it doesn't. You have to have people that are willing to step up and step in the voids in our community. And there's quite a few voids.
I just got handed a new one, but so earlier it was mentioned that housing is a factor in group violence. Can you please elaborate so we can understand how we can apply the lessons learned to the new housing projects that are planned in the county?
So when we talk about housing, like the sheriff touched on, a lot of the individuals that we encounter and that we deal with are, they don't have stable housing. They don't have a place to call home. They're flopping from friend's house to friend's house. So that all ties back to having some form of stability in their life. They just don't have it, and we've identified that. We know that as being one of the issues. Like we talked about, education, job opportunities. All these things go into trying to divert them away from a life that involves firearm violence or any violence of that of that nature. So again, with housing, we do talk to a lot of people, and we've talked to a lot of people. They've mentioned to us that they have trouble with housing. So when you're getting bounced around from place to place, you don't know where the next place is that you're going to sleep. You're not sure about your security at that place or what neighborhood you're going to be in, especially if you align with one of these criminal organizations. I mean, we've seen it in the work that we do, that sometimes you have people in a criminal organization. The next thing you know, they're staying with a family member in a neighborhood that's maybe not the best neighborhood for them to be in because of who they align with. So we see that as well. So having some form of stability, whether it be housing, education, or a job, would go a long way to help giving these individuals some form of security.
Great, thank you.
And as far as the housing goes, I mean, I live here, so the one thing that concerns me about the housing, talked about this the other day too, is there's going to be impacts. There's going to be impacts on traffic. There's going to be impacts on services. And how affordable is the housing going to be? Because what I'm hearing is that it's going to be, it's geared towards young professionals. I mean, I don't know what that means. Some of that sounds good to me because I have young correctional officers, professional staff, and deputy sheriffs that don't want to come to the peninsula because there's no place to live, and they certainly can't afford to pay $650,000 for a house on the starting salary. So that it seems like the concentration of housing is a little. It seems like they're only building in one place to me. It just happens to be all around me. So, I mean, I worry about services. I worry about traffic. I worry about those things.
Great, thanks for adding some additional information and layers there. Now, I want to shift back to our youth and the school system. And so the first question is, why isn't the school system on the group violence team? Does anyone know?
That's a good question.
So we actually, we actually just met with representatives from the school, and we just touched base with them just the other day, about group violence and what goes on in the schools and things of that nature. And of course, we have a relationship with the SROs in the school. We talk with them anytime there's an issue in the school or anytime we see potential for there to be an issue. We try to get ahead of things when we can. If we see something coming or we know that there's an incident at the school that might fall out into the community, we talk with the school resource officers, because those are the officers that are in the school every day. They know the people at the school. They know what's going on. They hear the rumors, and we are in pretty regular communication with those officers that provide us with information. And of course, our unit has always been intelligence led. So we take that intelligence, we build it into what we do. Then we go out into the community, we take enforcement action.
So understanding that the school resource officers are the program are in the schools, how else can violence stay out of the schools? But is there more that can be done?
What more can be done is I would love for it to be unacceptable for a child to rely on violence to settle an issue. It seems like the entire society has become a bubble mentality where people don't even know their neighbors. You have a neighborhood dispute. We go to hundreds of thousands of these neighborhood disputes. It's as simple as somebody with a light that's shining into a bedroom, or music that happens to be too loud. Somebody that didn't put the lid on their trash can and the wind blows and there's trash in a yard. It seems as if people are relying on police officers to solve basic human disagreements. The thing that worries me is that there is a infatuation and there is a love affair with violence, particularly in young people. I think you can see it in music. You can see it on the movies. You can see the YouTubes and all. It's all saturated with violence. And I think that they feel akin to that, and it desensitizes them, in my opinion. And if you don't have meaningful relationships with the people that are in your classrooms or in your neighborhoods or in your homes, that leads to violence.
So lots of violence. So with that knowledge, is there any additional training specific to youth that is being provided to the officers?
Specific to youth. I think that goes back to probably some of the in-service that we get annually and some of the basic training that you get at the beginning. And it is more, what we find is that it's more in line with anybody that might have a developmental need or somebody that has mental incapacity of some kind. Maybe, I know there's a specific set of training on children that suffer from autism and effectively communicating with them. But youth as a whole, I think probably our school resource officers and our adopted school officers get that in their school resource officer training program, probably more than anybody. It's been a while since I went through the academy. If anybody has any particular.
It's covered pretty it's covered pretty significantly in our crisis intervention and de-escalation classes that we take now that everybody gets throughout the year. There's parts on mental health first aid that specifically address youth and as people develop and as maybe mental disorders start to show or different needs that we see as people go through different changes of life. So that's covered in crisis intervention and mental health training.
But basically, and that's that crisis thing. So overall, as far as a youth thing, some of those things, some of those blocks touch that, or children that are in those particular circumstances. But it's thankfully for us, a lot of our staff have children of their own, and they bring their own personal experiences into it, and are very, very effective, especially with children.
Go ahead.
So if it's like general and overall, what happens like now that we see that there's more crime with the youth population? Do you feel like there should be some training implemented now that is more than just with the school resource officers?
I think you're gonna see that the catalog of classes is going to change, but you actually brought up a really good point, and it's a very big source of frustration with the people that you see standing up here that deal with this every day. And that is juvenile reform. If you have an individual that's potentially involved in crime, we can't even talk to them. An intervention by a law enforcement officer can change someone's life. It can change the trajectory. I think that that's something that's very misunderstood and very underreported as far as what law enforcement and correctional officers can do in people's lives. But that element of that law really makes it difficult because there is no intervention, there is no interview, there is no rapport building, trust, nothing. So that is something that we really hope that the Maryland legislature deals with this year. Because we do have the tools, we do have the professional and the personal experience to be able to effectively talk to children. And in certain instances, when we're called into it, where there's a criminal investigation, which is a matter that needs to be addressed, we're very, very limited as to what we can say or what we can ask them.
So keeping in mind with the legislator, have you heard of the restorative school practices? There's currently a bill in the legislative advocating for the use of practices in all Maryland schools.
The use of
Restorative school practices?
is that more old school, like you don't follow the rules and you're suspended? I'm not familiar with it.
Restorative schools.
Restorative schools.
Yes, it's a program being implemented in some of the schools in Baltimore, Howard County and all. But they're drafting a bill in the legislature now to make all the Maryland schools restorative schools and deals with the social, emotional development of children in school.
No matter what.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, how to talk to each other,
Facebook.
how to resolve conflict, all the things, following the rules But having them be involved in helping to make the rules, and so they have a program, and they have these circles, they call them restorative circles, that they work in, where the kids, learn social skills, learn to talk to each other, and they want to put coaches in every school.
I think that's a great idea. But that absolutely puts a spotlight on what we're facing. We have to restore things that were basic 25, 30 years ago. That's how far we've gone afoul. But I would encourage that, especially with people that don't have people displaying those examples at home. I think that could be the difference, and I would support that.
So speaking of the support systems at home and in the community, there are several programs in Lexington Park, such as Building Bridges, Enforce Focus. And the question is, how does the Sheriff's Department support those community efforts?
Anytime that anyone asks for us to be a part of any one of those programs, we're there. We do code drives at local schools. We always try to involve ourselves in anything, whether it's a festival, a fair, shopping with a cop, a child that's underserved or underprivileged, that a teacher is usually the person that refers those children to us. We'll pick them up and we'll take them shopping. We do that for both school and for Christmas. Anything that we can get involved in, we do.
Okay. Is the DARE program still around?
Yes, ma'am. I would love to have that in the elementary school. I think middle school is too late. I think it needs to be in the elementary school. So,
So DARE is here, but middle, not elementary.
Absolutely.
Do you find that there is a correlation between school disturbances and youth violence?
I think we can say that we've seen instances where in the neighborhoods, a disagreement, a squabble, a fight, or even an incident involving a firearm spills over then into the school. And then you've seen things in the school where there's a disagreement and it spills over into the neighborhoods. Yes, ma'am.
So on that note, so you have to get into the community, you have to ask questions. Do you find that the diversity is a barrier as it relates to being able to get insight from the involvement from the youth and other communities?
The lack of diversity on the part of the responding officers.
Yes.
We are very, very successful, very highly trained, and I think that we're very open. I'm not aware of anything where that prevented it. I will tell you that there are several instances, again, frustrating, where you get on the scene of something where someone is seriously injured by gunfire, and we are asking what happened, anything, witnesses, you name it, and the response that we typically get is, didn't see anything.
So do you think the lack of diversity plays into that at all?
I think that may just be some kind of a code that they believe that they need to follow. I think they're misled as far as what's going to happen afterwards. I think there's a lot of fear, and I think there's probably some distrust of law enforcement. And that's something that we work on every day. That's what this meeting and the meetings that we go to, that's where every call for service is an opportunity to change that. But I think that is more, I think that's more of a product of the group, the criminal organization, and how they think they need to behave because of how it's seen. What do they say? What's the one thing you don't do? What's the warning? That is as real as it can possibly be. I can tell you, I've heard it myself, and these men and women here have dealt with that, with literally somebody potentially dying in front of them.
So thinking about the gangs and the groups that we have in the county, is there a known hierarchy within the group activities?
My understanding is, and I'll let the expert speak to that, but my understanding is it's pretty disorganized, so it's not like you would see on the television or the movies.
That's exactly right. What we see is that these neighborhood crews, once someone either moves out of that neighborhood or is incarcerated, that someone younger or someone that's new to the neighborhood usually typically takes over. They're not very organized. Oftentimes you will see news lines or movies where they talk about these big organizations like the Bloods or the Crips, and they have all of these different things that they do, manufacturing narcotics or the distribution of firearms for money. What we're seeing is that they're going out of state to get these things, that they're bringing them back, and they're very loosely organized. Just to touch a little bit on the past questions, with respect to the school and them not being a part of the GBI program, what we have to remember is that we're not allowed to disseminate a lot of information on juveniles. So if we take someone from the school and then start disseminating their personal information into the GBI program, we could technically not be in compliance with law. So we're very cautious that we protect the rights of the juveniles, just like we would for the adults. With regard to the training for juveniles, although it's not specifically geared towards juveniles, the Sheriff's Office has very robust crisis intervention training that we do, where we are able to talk to a host of people in a different age range of personnel. And that's aimed at de-escalating incidents and building rapport and showing them that we really care so that we can mitigate use of force incidents. And that's not only for adults, that's done for all, like I said, the entire host of the population. With respect to what can we do more for the people or the juveniles that are in our community that might be perpetuating this violence, you have a police officer that's in a school for about 6 to 7 hours with these young men and women. And what we're concerned about is the time that they're away from the school, the time that we can't positively affect them. And who do they go home to, or who are they around? And oftentimes what we see is that their role models are people that have firearms. And what we see even more is that even if they don't have access to a real firearm, they will go out and trying to emulate these people that are the big people to them. They will go out and get BB guns or other weapons, and they'll try to emulate them, putting them in their waistband, which obviously is very precarious for us. So those are the kinds of things that we're seeing. So if we get to do anything to help our youth, I would say that should be to show them that we care, show them that we're there for them. And even when they make a mistake, that we're going to be there to pick them up when they fall, because that's what I think that they need. They need to know that we're there no matter what. And they need very close supervision, as the sheriff said. Different types of sports, different types of groups, and just having someone that'll be able to listen.
And if you don't mind, Miss Michelle Pottinger, I'm going to put you on the spot. She's also a member and a huge part of the group violence intervention team and program, but she also does something else for the health department, which is she manages and monitors the programs that's available out there for our youth. Did you want to just say a few words about how to get in contact with you or the programs that's available? Just give us something, because we keep hearing we got to love on the kids and be involved, right? So what do we got? Wait, hold on. I'm gonna give you a mic. I'll speak really loud. DJ,
Stand up. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Pottinger. I am the director of the Violence, Injury, and Trauma Unit at the Health Department. Along with our GVI program, we also have our Youth Mentoring Connections program, and that program connects youth to mentoring organizations in the community. I would like to introduce Brianne Daly. She's our youth engagement coordinator. We also have Ms. Patrice Campbell here, who's from Building Bridges. So, the importance of working with our youth is connecting them to positive role models and mentors. And that's what we do with our Mentorings Connections program, as well as through our GVI program. So if you would like to get in contact with us, you can reach out to myself, Brianne Daly, and my youth engagement coordinator, as well as Christiana Kiefer, who's my violence prevention coordinator. And we all work together on many aspects on connecting youth. And we also have our VIT action team meeting. That's a part of the Healthy St. Mary's Partnership Coalition. And we meet monthly with community partners from the community to also push initiatives within the county. And anybody can be a partner of that.
Anybody can join. Or become a youth mentor as well. Okay. So I have just a couple of more questions from the audience, but thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Hold a second.
Okay. But I've been noticing on the news where in other jurisdictions, they've been taking dogs and then asking for ransom. Have we had any of those instances here in St. Mary's yet where dogs have been nabbed? I mean, you laugh about it or you smile about it, but you know, it's a real big problem. And
There have been dogs or pets that have been stolen, but they typically don't, to my knowledge, they have not been ransomed. They take them, and then if it's a particular breed, something that brings a lot of money or it's very popular, they'll sell them. And obviously, we've had some pretty substantial animal cruelty cases as well, unfortunately. The one other thing that I wanted to say about the group violence initiative is I hope that you all got it in the presentation, because when I first started to learn about this program, and I'm so glad you guys are here, because it's so out of the box. It's so out of the box. We're going and knocking on doors. We're going into living rooms and saying to people, young people, potentially violent people that have either shot or been shot, and saying to them, you matter. We want you alive, thriving, and free. Take advantage of what we have to offer you. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, 25 years ago, that is not in the law enforcement mantra. So it's a phenomenal shift. And it's unfortunate that we have to do it, but I'm so thankful that we have our partners and these people involved in it.
So speaking of the data that's come out and to get us to and after the group violence intervention program, everything has been in the aggregate. And so we have some questions regarding the disaggregated data, specifically the number of African Americans that are in the detention center, in gangs, in all areas. I don't know about that one, but do we have any way of getting any disaggregated data that breaks down those things for us?
So as far as who's inside the detention center?
Yes.
So, so just to give, because I kind of thought this may come up tonight, but so the for pretrial, so the African Americans the percentage is like 49%, Asian is 1%, Hispanic is 3%. There's an other, and then like a 46% for Caucasian persons. So as far as gender, it's 83% is males and it is 17% is females. So just because I'm gonna run down my list. So, and just so that you know that in January of 2023, there were 229 persons that were incarcerated. And in December, we had a decline. So we were down to 194. It has jumped up a little bit again in January. As far as like a local sentence, we have like 26% of our population is local sentence. State sentence is about 3%. Those are folks that are waiting to go to the state prison system. We have 59% are awaiting trial, and we have 12% are there in pre-sentence that they have been found guilty, but they're having an investigation into where their sentence will go. As far as our daily population, just inside the detention center, it's like 56% of African Americans, 3% Hispanics, 40% are white. And as far as the gender breakdown inside the jail, it's like 13% for female, and for males, it's 87%. And then I also had them break down for me, like the 20% that I talked about that were like the attempted murder and the murder and the assault first degree. 75% were African American, 2% are Hispanic, 23% are white, 10% of those are female, 90% are male. And then as far as the gun violence breakdown, it was 71.6% that were African American, 26.4% were Caucasian, 2% were Hispanic, and then the breakdown again was primarily males to the females.
Awesome. So the answer is yes. It is available. And if we ask for that in a PDF or something, is it possible to get that data?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. So I don't have any more questions. Does anyone have any burning questions that they want to ask before we, Dr. Walthour?
My burning question, I guess, is for the sheriff. Do you think it was a mistake for the county commissioners to do you think it was a mistake for the commissioners to, I guess, what we designate St. Mary's County as a gun sanctuary? Would that have any impact on why people think it's so great? We're a gun sanctuary, meaning, well, when I think of it, it means, oh, bring your guns, come. I know that's not exactly what it means, but I've
No,
always had a problem with that. I
it's-
think it was terrible.
Yeah, it's interesting because that gun sanctuary designation, did you ever hear the term paper tiger? That's all that is. That's all it is. It was a piece of paper saying, we support the Second Amendment. It gave nobody any other rights. It didn't. I mean, it's all in how you feel about that. The issue that we're here primarily to talk about and what we're most concerned about is not about the Second Amendment. It's about young people using firearms as tools of terror. I don't know that they would even care about whatever the Board of County Commissioners deemed whenever they did. You have to dig deeper. You have to go back into where are they coming from? What do they feel? When I have seen some of these kids, and some are in the detention center, the thing that concerns me is their eyes are devoid of hope. They are not afraid to pull a weapon and shoot it. They are not afraid to be shot. They are not afraid to die, and they are not afraid to be incarcerated. That is probably the scariest opponent we can have as a community, not just for law enforcement. The prevalence of weapons and the ease with which they're getting them, they get them from other places. You can manufacture a killing instrument by pieces that you can order on the internet and use a simple drill to build it. But the Second Amendment and sanctuary, in my opinion, it's so much more than that. And I really don't. There's sanctuaries there are neighborhoods and houses that are sanctuaries for young people to have weapons. That's the problem.
Wow, that is a somber note that I don't want to leave us on, but.
Well, we're doing all right. And the answer is in this room. We're doing all right.
Okay, I
The
like
answer
that.
is in
There we
this
go.
The answer is in this room. We're willing to do whatever we can to save lives and make a difference in people's lives. You all, I know a lot of people sitting in this room that's what they're about. That's what you've done for a lifetime. So that's encouraging. And I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be okay. We got to get this youth thing taken care of.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Hall, and everyone. Thank you guys so much. Again, thank you, Sheriff Hall and team. We appreciate you always partnering with the NAACP to come out and give us an annual update. Thank you for the extension, our invitation for us to ask you some questions about the St. Mary's Detention Center and